It's legacy, because the man who leads himself quietly today becomes a man others follow without question tomorrow. But leadership, real leadership, starts with one thing: self-return. The moment you stop reaching outward and finally reclaim the man within. Let's bring this full circle. Let's talk about what it means to live and leave behind a legacy of quiet power. There comes a point in a man's life where he stops chasing and starts returning, not to the past, not to the world, but to himself. He stops performing, stops apologizing, stops waiting for someone to recognize him, and instead, he builds something stronger than noise. He builds presence. That's what subtle confidence is. Not a tactic, not a pose, but a return, a reclaiming of your voice, your stillness, your power. Because in the end, confidence is not something you show. It's something you embody. It's not given. It's grown, quietly, patiently, in the dark places where most men refuse to go. And yet, the man who does becomes unforgettable. He becomes the man others notice without knowing why. The man others listen to, not because he's louder, but because he speaks from somewhere real. He becomes a mirror, reflecting truth, calm, and strength. In a world addicted to approval, his detachment is magnetic. In a culture chasing constant validation, his silence becomes a sermon. But none of this is about being better than anyone. It's about being better than the version of you that used to seek outside what can only be built inside. So take this with you. Subtle confidence is not the absence of fear. It's the mastery of it. It's walking into the fire of life without flinching. It's being the eye of the storm while everyone else is spinning. And that kind of man, he doesn't need applause. He doesn't need to be understood. He doesn't even need to be liked, because he's already chosen himself. Day after day, discipline after discipline, choice after quiet, powerful choice. So if the world misunderstands you, good. If they can't label you, can't predict you, can't shake you, even better. Because the man who doesn't seek the crowd will one day lead it. Not through volume, but through vibration. Not through flash, but through force of presence. And when people speak your name years from now, they may not remember every word you said, but they will remember one thing: how you made them feel calm, grounded, safe, like in your presence, they could finally breathe. That's your legacy. Not to be famous, not to be flashy, but to be felt. To walk like stone, speak like steel, and love with depth. To be the kind of man who is not moved by storms, because he is the mountain. You've heard enough. Now go live it, silently, powerfully, like a man who has nothing to prove and everything to protect. If this message spoke to you, not as noise, but as truth, if you're building a life of quiet power and disciplined presence, then don't just watch. Subscribe, because this isn't just a channel. It's a sanctuary for men like you, men who lead in silence, love with depth, and move with purpose. And if you know another man who needs this message, send it to him. Let's build a brotherhood of men who no longer seek the spotlight, because we've already found the fire within. And when it's his turn, he doesn't ramble. He doesn't try to win. He speaks with intention. Every word is chosen. Every pause is powerful. Because when you speak from a place of stillness, not insecurity, you don't have to raise your voice to make it heard. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you truly listened without needing to jump in? When was the last time your words were fewer but heavier? In a society obsessed with being loud, your silence can be a thunderstorm. But make no mistake, this isn't about being cold or distant. Subtle confidence isn't apathy. It's awareness. When you ask someone a question, you don't do it to impress them. You do it to uncover truth, to build real connection. Because that's where power lies, not in performance, but in presence. A man who can hold silence in a conversation without flinching is a man who doesn't fear being misunderstood. He trusts his essence to be felt beyond words. And when he does speak, he doesn't need to show off. His intelligence comes through his calmness, his strength through restraint, his depth through curiosity. He knows when to offer insight and when to simply nod. He knows that being heard doesn't always require speaking louder. Sometimes it means speaking slower, And most importantly, he understands this. Conversations are not about dominance. They're about resonance. And when your voice carries truth, you don't have to sell it. People lean in to hear it. So refine your speech. Practice silence. Observe more than you express. And when the moment comes to speak, let your word be like arrows, sharp, clear, and few, because the man of subtle confidence doesn't talk to be liked. He speaks to be remembered. Yet what you say and how you say it is only as strong as the foundation behind it. And that foundation, it's not built in public. It's forged in silence, in the unseen battles you fight with yourself. Let's go deeper, into the inner fortress where real confidence is built. Every man has a battlefield no one sees. It's not out there in the world. It's inside, silent, brutal, and relentless. And the war is waged every day between who you are and who you're afraid to become. Subtle confidence is not born on stages. It's not gifted by applause. It's built behind closed doors, brick by brick, in solitude, in the early mornings when no one is watching, in the nights when doubt crawls in the moments you want to quit. But don't. This is the inner fortress. And if you want to walk through life with quiet strength, this is where you start. Because no body language trick, no clever phrase can substitute for a man who has done the work. Confidence at last isn't loud. It's layered. And the deepest layer is this: a man who has made peace with himself. The man who knows his worth doesn't need to chase approval. He doesn't collapse under criticism. He doesn't rely on achievements, likes, or compliments to feel whole. He's not empty waiting to be filled. He's full, overflow with the strength of self-respect. But getting there, that's the hard part. And that's why most men never arrive. They build muscles but neglect the mind. They seek praise but run from pain. They mask insecurity with humor, arrogance, or charm because silence scares them. But the Stoic man, he walks into silence. He embraces it. He lets it strip him of illusions. And in that raw stillness, he meets himself, his wounds, his fears, his guilt. And instead of running, he rebuilds. He rewrites the script of his own mind. You see, self-talk isn't a luxury. It's architecture. Every word you say to yourself is another stone in your fortress. And if those words are filled with doubt, with self-loathing, with shame, your foundation will crack the first time life hits hard. But if those words are grounded in truth, in strength, and earned self-respect, then you become immovable. That's why the inner work is sacred. Journaling, meditation, discipline, physical challenge. These are not routines. They are rituals, acts of self-mastery. Proof that you can govern yourself when no one else is watching. And when you learn to lead yourself, you no longer need the world to follow. Remember this: subtle confidence isn't about being better than others. It's about being whole within yourself. You can walk alone. You can be misunderstood. You can be doubted, ignored, even disrespected, and none of it touches your core. Because your validation doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within the walls you've built, the quiet strength you carry, the unshakable presence that says, without a word, I know who I am, I've earned my silence. And that is enough. And once those walls are strong, something shifts. The world begins to respond differently. Doors open. People lean in. Opportunities appear, not because you chase them, but because you attracted them. This is where subtle confidence becomes your greatest advantage. In a world that chases applause, there is one man who moves differently. He doesn't compete for validation. He doesn't advertise his worth. He walks his own path, speaks when it matters, and leaves a trail of quiet impact wherever he goes. This is the man with subtle confidence. And while others burn out seeking attention, he grows stronger in stillness. He knows that power doesn't need to be loud, that the man who owns the silence commands a room far more than the one who tries to dominate it. You've seen it. The man who speaks sparingly, but when he does, everyone listens. The man who doesn't flirt, yet draws attention without effort. The one who stays calm while others panic. And somehow, everyone starts looking to him for direction. This isn't luck. This isn't charm. This is a result of years of inner refinement. A man who has shed the ego, who has made peace with solitude, who has nothing to prove, but everything to protect. His values, his dignity, his time. And it shows. In dating, women feel it instantly. They lean in curious, unsettled, in the best way, by a man who doesn't chase. A man who doesn't try to convince, impress, or charm. He simply is. And that being is magnetic, because he knows what most never learn. Desire isn't about noise. It's about energy. And energy doesn't lie. In business, this man doesn't have to sell himself with flashy words. His posture speaks volumes. His clarity creates trust. His restraint shows wisdom. While others scramble for attention, he builds respect, quietly, consistently, permanently. Even among friends, he becomes the one people turn to when things fall apart. Not because he has all the answers, but because he doesn't get shaken. His grounded nature becomes a lighthouse in their storm. This is the subtle confidence advantage. It doesn't win the crowd, it wins the right people. It doesn't peak fast, it lasts. It isn't about momentum, it's about gravity. A deep, immovable center that people can feel. But here's the catch. This kind of man is rare. Not because it's unattainable, but because most men never go far enough into themselves to find it. They stop at style, at talk, at tricks and tips. But you? If you made it this far, you're not like most. You're the kind of man who senses that something deeper is possible. That maybe, just maybe, the path to true confidence is not in becoming someone else, but in finally coming home to who you've always been beneath the noise. And if you can stay with that silence, if you can choose presence over performance, integrity over attention, purpose over pride, then there's a kind of man who walks into a room and says nothing, yet everyone notices, not because he's loud, not because he's flashy, but because there's something in his presence controlled, grounded, calm like deep water. He doesn't seek approval. He doesn't fight for attention. He knows who he is, and that changes everything. This is the power of subtle confidence. The kind of confidence that doesn't scream, but resonates. It's not about puffing your chest. It's not about domination. It's about presence. Discipline, the quiet self-assurance of a man who has faced himself and didn't flinch. In a world that rewards noise, the man who speaks less but means more becomes a rare force. And this video is not about tips and tricks. It's about understanding that force, developing it, living it, because subtle confidence is not a performance. It's a way of being. So if you've ever felt the pressure to prove yourself, if you've ever tried to be alpha, but it never sat right in your bones, if you're tired of chasing attention and want to start commanding it, then this message is for you. Not to teach you how to act confident, but to help you become it. So where does that journey begin? Not in words, not in tactics. It starts with understanding what subtle confidence truly is and what it is not. Let's step into foundation, the space between bravado and insecurity, where the real warrior stands. There's a battlefield inside every man. On one side, the insecure boy who's always seeking approval. On the other, the arrogant performer who masks fear with bravado. Most men swing between the two. One moment silent and invisible, the next overcompensating in a desperate cry for validation. But there's a third path, a narrow bridge between the extremes. And it belongs to the man who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. That man radiates what I call subtle confidence, a quiet inner strength that doesn't ask for permission and doesn't beg for applause. Subtle confidence is not timid. It's not passive. It's powerful, but that power is under control. Like a sheathed sword, like a lion that doesn't need to roar to remind you who he is. This man walks slowly, speaks with intention, listens more than he talks. He doesn't rush to fill the silence, because he is the silence, and that silence draws people in, not out of manipulation, but because we are wired to respect stillness that feels grounded in purpose. Understand this. Subtle confidence is not about having all the answers. It's about being anchored in your truth, even when the world questions you. It's the unshakable belief that your value doesn't fluctuate based on others' opinions. That's why people trust him. Women feel safe with him. Men respect him. And in every room he enters, his energy speaks louder than his words. This confidence comes from within, but it can be developed. It's forged in solitude, sharpened through discipline, and revealed not when everything is going right, but when everything is falling apart. The man of subtle confidence doesn't collapse under pressure. He doesn't react, he responds. He doesn't boast, he builds. And when people meet him, they feel something ancient, something noble, something rare. So let's be clear, the world doesn't need more loud men. It needs more solid ones. Men who are not driven by ego, but guided by essence. That's what this journey is about. Becoming the man whose calm presence becomes his most powerful statement. And while that confidence begins within, the world still reads your body before it hears your voice. So let's look closer at the first language you ever speak. The language of posture, presence, and stillness. Your body. Before you say a single word, the world has already decided who you are. Not because they truly know you, but because your body already told them a story. Your posture, your gaze, the tension or peace in your muscles. These are not just habits. They are symbols, reflections of your inner command or your inner chaos. Subtle confidence begins in the body. It's not about flexing. It's not about puffing up your chest. It's about how you carry the weight of your own presence. Quiet, measured, decisive. The Stoic man doesn't fidget. He doesn't twitch or overcorrect. He knows that silence, stillness, and self-control are not just emotional tools. They are physical ones. When he enters a room, he doesn't shrink himself. He takes up space, not with arrogance, but with acceptance. His shoulders are pulled back, not because he's trying to look strong, but because he already is. His eye contact is steady, but not aggressive. It doesn't challenge. It holds. It says, I see you and I'm not afraid to be seen in return. And that unsettles the insecure. It disarms the guarded. It attracts those who are used to performance, not presence. Even his hands speak. There's no frantic motion. No need to prove a point with waving gestures. When he moves, it's slow, purposeful, deliberate, like a man who knows time bends around him, not the other way around. Women notice it instantly. They may not be able to articulate it, but they feel it. It's primal. It's real. A man who is in command of his body sends one message loud and clear. I do not chase validation. I embody it. Now hear this clearly. This is not something you fake. You can't pretend presence. You build it, and that building begins in stillness, meditation, discipline, cold showers, workouts where every rep is a conversation between you and your willpower. It's about showing your body over and over again who's in charge. You. That's why posture matters. That's why breath matters. Because the man who can regulate his body can regulate his world. But it's not perfection we seek, it's awareness. The next time you walk into a room, pause. Stand tall. Feel your feet grounded like roots. Let your hands rest at your sides. Breathe in, not to fill your lungs, but to command your space. This isn't about intimidating others. It's about honoring yourself. Because when you respect your own presence, others will too. Not out of fear, but out of something deeper, a recognition that you are a man who doesn't need to announce himself because he has already arrived. In the realm of subtle confidence, words are optional, but presence, that's non-negotiable. But speaking is an art, and silence is half the canvas. Now, let's step into the realm of conversation, not to impress, but to connect, and to be felt without ever raising your voice. Most men think confidence is measured in how much they talk. But the truth is, in a world drowning in noise, the man who speaks less and means more is the one who holds the room. Subtle confidence doesn't need to dominate the conversation. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It listens. It weighs. And when it finally speaks, it lands. This is the art of still conversation, the way of the Stoic man, not to impress, not to control, but to connect with clarity, with depth, and with presence. You see, people don't remember everything you say. They remember how you made them feel. And in every exchange, the man of quiet power brings a rare feeling. Calm, depth, integrity. That begins with listening, not just to words, but to tone, to silence, to what's being held back. The confident man doesn't listen to respond. He listens to understand. He doesn't interrupt to prove his intelligence. He lets others reveal who they are first. Because he already knows who he is.